The dedication and hard work of our teachers in both district schools and charter schools are making a difference in children's lives every day. We protect and advocate for all children and for all teachers.
Our interest in charters, first and foremost, is what's best for the students we serve every day. NYSUT supports a charter law that encourages a system that serves all students fairly.
Above all, charters were to be about education in its purest form, free of political manipulation or agendas or from people who are trying to make profits off the back of children. We therefore stand against the divisive, separate, and unequal discourse that some charter school organizations, such as the Charter School Association and Victory Schools, have been pushing. It is time to restore balance to the equation on behalf of the communities that we all serve and live in.
Let me be clear from the outset, despite the rhetoric coming from some quarters, despite the criticism, attacks, and finger-pointing, NYSUT is not opposed to charter schools. NYSUT is very proud to represent faculty in more than 20 charters, and we look forward to organizing more teachers who want a meaningful voice in the operation of their charter schools very soon.
All public schools should be funded fairly. All public schools should be transparent and accountable. And all public schools should encourage and recognize parent and staff participation.
As a union that is deeply concerned about the fiscal crisis our state faces and the deep cuts proposed for education, we also want to ensure that all schools, charter and district schools, are funded fairly and that all schools are accountable and transparent in how they spend public tax dollars.
New Yorkers are tired of hearing about for-profit charter operators extorting huge amounts of fees from the schools they operate, lining their pockets with money that should instead be going to programs, and more importantly, in these very tough economic times, money that was intended for the classroom and for the children inside of those classrooms.
Because the law fails to provide comprehensive accountability for taxpayer dollars, the promise of charter schools is undermined by instances of financial mismanagement and ethical lapses that place profits ahead of students.
Teachers are tired of being terrorized when they dare to ask for more voice in school policies or when parents try to organize PTAs at a charter school. Parents are tired of watching their children treated like second-class citizens when they are segregated from charter school facilities in their own schools or forced out of buildings as they do here in New York City. And everyone is tired of hearing stories about unequal treatment, whether it is how charters are funded or which students they choose to enroll, both of which pit parents against parent, leave neighborhoods separated into the haves and the have-nots. These are practices that are abhorrent and should be stopped.
Charter operators receive more than 95% of their revenue from public funds, yet are currently exempt from audits by the Office of the State Controller, which recently completed audits of all other regular public schools. This financial autonomy sets them apart from other schools in the state. Similarly, student enrollment is by lottery, and operators can discharge students, two factors which also differentiate charters from neighborhood public schools.
Charter school operators and managers have spent a lot of time and money trying to convince New Yorkers that the rules should not apply to them, that operating charter schools fairly and without openness is somehow a hindrance to their business model.
NYSUT remains steadfast in saying that any lifting of the cap must be accompanied by the needed reforms to the law, reforms that would more fairly fund both charters and regular public schools, require charter management to more fully disclose finances and eliminate conflicts of interest, and require charter management to be fair and transparent about student enrollment and testing.
Charter schools are public schools, and they are therefore must serve the public good, meeting the same educational standards and serving the same students as the district schools. That means teaching all students. In January, we'd issue a report, reviewed data on file with the New York State Education Department and the city's Department of Education. That data showed that charter schools serve significantly fewer than the average of the city's poorest children, and 10 to 25% of such of the children of the charter's own neighborhoods.
We are simply asking for fairness and equity, not just for our members, but for students, their families, and New York State taxpayers. Yet the New York State Charter School Association, the lobby group for charter schools, has opposed these and other common sense reforms.
Working together, we need to maximize funding for all public schools and fix the funding formulas that create disparities between the charters and district schools. so that all students are better served. Unfortunately, we have gotten no help from special interests who prefer misguided rhetoric to actual collaboration and hard work on these tough issues. The challenge going forward is finding ways to work together towards the betterment of the public school system. The UFT is ready to do its part. When the law was passed 10 years ago that allowed charters, I don't think anyone thought that a bunch of private management companies would have ran into New York State and figured out a way to make thousands of dollars of profit off each and every individual student. So, and I don't want to paint all the charters with a broad brush, because that is wrong. Because we have charters that have been started by community-based organizations, charters who have been started by groups of teachers who wanted to either try new things in education or felt that there was a need for certain students. And these schools are there, and they're doing wonderful things. But then there are others who have charter management organizations, and that seems to be where we keep hearing these stories in the newspapers on these investigations. So I think there is a possible way to create legislation that stops this from happening.
So the question of transparency is important to taxpayers, and accountability is very important.
It's their money, and we should hold their money in reverence. They are working hard to pay their taxes. They know it's their duty to educate the next generation, and it should be done in a fair and transparent way. Same way as in the public schools with those comptroller audits.
Should other successfully and properly run charters be judged based on some of your findings?
Right. Well, the answer is, in a lot of this, we just don't know, because the audits by the comptroller's office are not happening. So where we know things and it's out for the public to see, it's one thing. When it's hidden, because we are not allowing the comptroller's office to do these audits, all we have are questions.
With respect to your statement that in Albany, I think it was the charter management organizations were somehow lobbying with respect to the race to the top legislation. With all due respect, and notwithstanding Senator Perkins not being in your pocket, you have a PAC.
Be careful now.
Said he's not.
Careful now.
But your PAC is among the largest political contributors in Albany.
Just remember, I told you to be careful on this before you ask this question.
Right.
But for the sake of transparency, Senator Johnson, since you have made comment about Senator Perkins and my pocket in a...
You made the comment.
Yes, but you followed up on it in a derogatory way. I will ask you at this point, would you like to say here in this public hearing how much money and support you have received from the Charter School Association?
You know, hey. Just like I received support from NYSUT.
Yes, I understand. I would like to know if you would like to discuss that, since it's a hell of a lot more than what's been quoted on Mr. Perkins here.
You know what, with respect, I couldn't even tell you.
I could, $65,000.
The questions will go on forever until there is some real accountability and transparency. I don't see why there would be a fight against it. I really don't. I love public education, and if a charter school is doing the right thing, then we should applaud it. We're not here to sink them. We're here to say this is great that there's success. Well, let's make sure it's real success. That's really it.
We also supported the Silver-Sampson bill, which would have raised the cap on charter schools. So let the record clearly state that.
Yep, you bet, to 400. It also would have decimated the parents' ability to actually get into those charter schools. Let me ask you this.
It would have actually given all parents the ability to get into charter schools.
They actually have that ability now. But let me ask you this.
Let me just cite an example of a misallocation of funding. KIPP Academy Charter School in the Bronx, management at the KIPP Academy Charter School used $68,000 of taxpayer money to fund a 5-day staff retreat to resorts in the Bahamas, as well as on alcohol and parties. The school sent 21 staffers to the town of Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic at the cost of $1,100 per person, and 49 employees to the Radisson Cable Beach in Nassau. Is this something that should continue? This is horrid. I would just like to say, I think everybody in this room is a taxpayer, and I think that we all pay our fair share. We would want the public schools to be fully funded. I am not afraid of an audit, and neither should the charter schools.